people, I'm Madison. Welcome to my internet space. So today I wanted to talk about this phenomenon that is happening on the internet of women talking and discussing them regretting parents. Yeah, I have some notes unlike the last video, so hopefully we can get through this in a little bit more of a smooth way and a bit more cohesive. Now, this is going to be more of a mother perspective, some extremely binary verbiage going to be used here. I will try to supplement my own personal preference of language into it because I am non-binary myself. It's a more heteronormative conversation because of what we are discussing today. I wanted to bring the perspective of a about to be mother. My baby is due any freaking day now. He can come out any day now. Any day now would be great. Like tonight would be a great time to go into labor. Onto the topic. There are a few different types of women, mothers that are discussing this topic. There's been some men, but we're not really going to be bringing them into the conversation because, let's face it, their opinions don't really matter here. They just don't. There's been a few YouTube videos that I watched, show them to you now. They talked about different types of women or female presenting people, womb carriers that have had this conversation. So there's the mothers who want kids and want you to have kids. There's the non-mothers who are proud to be non-mothers, and some that even think that you shouldn't have kids. And then there's the mothers who have kids and hate having kids, and then there's the women who just love to be pregnant. They just like pop out babies, and usually that has like a religious narrative to it. There's a lot of nuance with each of these characters, these people that are in these categories. Of course, there's going to be subcategories. Like, for example, my grandmother is somebody who loved to be pregnant, but it had nothing to do with a religious aspect. It had everything to do with the fact that she loved the attention while she was pregnant because she's a narcissist. Let's talk about why this conversation is even being had on the internet right now. There was obviously this glorification of being a parent, more specifically a mother, back in the baby boom era, the 1950s, or even now. What the heck? Why am I breaking out? Nothing I can do about it. We'll just pretend like it's not happening. There was a narrative formed roughly, I don't know the specifics, like 100-ish years ago, give or take, where it was like, it was glamorized to be a mother. It was the nuclear family was portrayed as the best option for life and fulfillment.
Because a lot of us were sold that motherhood is the main thing that we should do, and it is amazing for every single woman ever. Everyone's qualified to be a parent, everyone should love it, everyone will like it, and it's going to be an amazing Disney princess type feeling when you hold your baby for the first time.
And this obviously stems from patriarchy, but of course, as time went on and we were able to communicate through, women obtaining rights, being able to have conversations, that there are definitely other paths to life, especially with women going into the workforce, that they didn't have to find fulfillment in having kids. And in fact, a lot of women were even discovering that they didn't really want to have kids, or they just weren't enjoying that element of their life, but they did it because, that's what you're supposed to do because you have a womb. And even now in 2026, we are conditioned to want kids. It's biological in all reality because we are animals, and animals have that predisposition to birth and create more so that the population doesn't fail, which we are seeing in the narrative that is being pushed today, that because we have our birth rates lowering, we need to have more kids, we need the nuclear family back, and which I personally just don't necessarily agree with. Like, I believe that we should have free will, that we should be able to choose the path that we want to live, regardless of gender, regardless of what's going on in the world, regardless of whether or not the economy is failing, regardless of whether or not our systems will need to be reestablished, reinvented, if you know what I mean. But because the narrative is, oh my gosh, we're gonna fail as a species, we have situations where women are being forced to have kids when they don't want them, or they're having kids despite not wanting them or realizing that they don't want them, because they're told that that's what you're supposed to do. So, for example, a lot of people, my mom being one of them, that told me about this experience, and I've seen people talk about it on TikTok and various, like, it's a very common experience for women to want to be sterilized, and the doctors, the nurses will push against it. That doesn't mean that it's not legal. It's 100% legal to be sterilized in every single one of the states. Most of them by 21, a couple, I think like 4 at 18. So it's legally, you're allowed to be sterilized, but there's going to be pushback. Some doctors will even want signatures from your husband, or they'll be like, you need to have at least 2 kids before I will agree to sterilize you. I'm grateful that that wasn't my experience, because after this one comes out of me, I will be getting sterilized, because I do not need to bring more lives into this world, not because of the world, but because I don't think that I would be able to handle raising multiple little beings and being able to keep my chill, able to keep my cool. I have a pretty high tolerance to bullshittery, I guess I should say, like the chaos of the world, but I still have like a tap off. I will be getting sterilized, and I'm grateful that my doctor was like, okay, cool, here's the form, sign them. But that's not the experience that most people have. It's a fairly uncommon experience, actually. And maybe it's because of my age, and maybe it's because my husband was there with me. I don't know. It was easy peasy lemon squeezy. They didn't even look at him. Like, he wasn't even a part of the conversation. But they're pushing this narrative that the fulfillment of life is through procreation by using things like the birth rate dropping and the male loneliness epidemic, forcing this idea that it's our responsibility as women to take care of these problems, to make families, to put up with the bullshit that men in your life are putting you through. This is from a heteronormative perspective. I don't really care for it, but that's what the patriarchy is, so that's the conversation that we have to have. They don't care about the quality of life. They care about the quantity, and we can see that through situations such as them overturning Roe versus Wade and the education system failing because of the No Child Left Behind. And that's a whole other conversation that we could have on another video on another day, but that is so alarming. It makes me like want to homeschool my kid, which I think is exactly what they want. So it's like, oh, we got to figure out what we're gonna do. Am I right? Nonetheless, but they're pushing that programming, they're pushing that conditioning, that it's our duty as women to create life, and it's putting these women in situations where when they get pregnant, they kind of feel almost forced or gaslit into believing that even if they don't think that they want kids now, it'll get better in the future, it'll you'll find fulfillment whenever you hold your baby, or so on and so forth. And so it's removing a level of free will and autonomy that every person should be allotted. We should all be able to go within ourselves and look at the outside world, and come to our own conclusions as to what we want for our lives and for our future. Whether or not that involves kids should be entirely up to the individual and then the family that individual ends up being, whether it's a single person and you're thriving as a single mom, or not single mom, as a single person and being like career driven and being that go-getter, or you get into a relationship and you want to have kids and you want to fill your house up with children. I feel like there's a certain level of ethics that needs to be involved there, but it's not my decision to tell you not to have 10 kids. And then of course there's some people who mindlessly have kids, and there's no judgment there. I'm not judging you if you ended up pregnant and you said, well, here I am, I guess I'm gonna take care of this being now, and now you're regretting it. We all have our own journeys, we're all on our own different paths, but I do think it's really important to have kids from a mindful place and understanding where your limits are, and if having a kid is going to completely demolish your life, I don't think that you should do it, but you also just might not know that it will. And that's the nuance of the situation that we all need to keep in mind when it comes to these parents, single moms, moms in relationships where the relationship isn't as healthy as it should be, and now they're pretty much a single mom in a relationship, and so on and so forth. There's so many different variables when it comes to bringing life into this world and being a mother, that we can't be judging women based on them having kids. I'm not gonna lie, I was a very judgmental bitch. I used to go in and really just like, I can't believe that you would have a child and then get divorced, then get another partner. I can't believe that you would have kids if you can't do your dishes. I can't believe I was that person. And I still have to battle some of those intrusive thoughts, those judgmental thoughts, because we're human. But in all reality, we are animals and we are all on our own journey, and we're all going to have different experiences, and we need to be open to hearing those experiences, specifically from women. And that's the next point. Because parenthood has been glamorized specifically to women and females that have children, we're almost shamed when we don't have a good experience with having children. Like I said, my brain will do the thing where it's like, how dare you? Not cool, not okay. We need to have these spaces, these safe spaces, to talk about our experiences so that we can make informed decisions when it comes to having kids.
That there absolutely should be a safe space for mothers to talk about their experiences. Even though, yes, she laid down and she had the baby, the motherhood experience is so romanticized that you don't know what you're signing up for. And we need to stop pretending like this isn't something that's actively happening. They're pushing this whole nuclear family, birth rate is falling, governments are freaking out because they won't have their laborers in the future. But we need to start telling women that it is hard, it is a sacrifice. You might enjoy, you might not.
If we are just closing that down and be like, nope, 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 then people aren't going to be able to create happy, healthy people. So many moms, so many people out there will have kids and not tell their kids about like the pros and cons of having their children because they're afraid of how that's going to impact their kid. I am grateful that my mom was pretty forthcoming with her experience as a parent. She got divorced early on in my childhood. Stories that she would tell me ranged from the most beautiful, amazing, loving stories to horrific, I can't believe that would even happen situations. For example, with me specifically, she would tell me how beautiful it was to watch me become like a little human as I would like run around the house singing into a phone that wasn't plugged up, all the way to the story of me painting with my poop on walls and feeding it to my sibling. So there's definitely some range in the experiences and the emotions that invoked. But both of those things are very fundamental to who I am as a person, because now I am a painter. I love to sing, I love to create, and that was prominent in my childhood, even though there was things that were positive and negative about discovering that about me. But my mom was very much on the narrative of there is nothing like motherhood. You'll know no love like being a mom, and so on and so forth, which I find to be fairly problematic.
Yeah, the people who say that you will never know love until you become a parent, the people who say that they want to have a child because they want to have someone to love and someone who's going to love them, yeah, side eye.
Because, of course, it's going to be a different love than your romantic partner or your parental love that you have for your parents and so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean that we should be romanticizing it to that degree. Yeah. It's important that we, as a community, build the narrative that there is going to be a balance of good days and there's going to be a balance of bad days, just like there is without kids. But then you add a child into the equation, and you have to understand where that's going to fall for you, whether it's going to make the days more bad or the days more good. You don't get to choose your kid. That's the reality of life. You kind of throw in a gamble. Your kid could be the chillest person, your best friend that you could have ever imagined would be in this world, or they could literally be like a fucking serial killer. So fingers crossed you don't get the latter, you know what I mean? Also, adding to the conversation about the people that say that you shouldn't have kids because it's a selfish thing, again, not really your place to tell people when and where to have children. I don't think that it's a selfish thing. Maybe inherently is selfish to create a life because you don't have any power over the world and the things around you, but it's not necessarily a negative selfish thing. It's a natural desire to want to have kids. If that is something that you want to do, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it could bring you true fulfillment and joy, but that's entirely on you as an individual. Being introspective with your parenting, in a sense of not losing yourself in parenthood, which I think is a big problem with a lot of these parents, is they don't know themselves enough to truly make a decision for themselves to have like good relationships with their kids and with themselves while having kids. I don't think that there is inherently an issue with somebody finding a certain level of identity in being a parent. It's a big component in your life because once you have a kid, you are a parent for the rest of your life. You don't just turn that off whenever they turn 18. I think it becomes an issue when that is your only identity. I personally am a stay-at-home partner, so that kind of adds a certain level of needing to truly be solid in myself as a person so that I don't lose myself in being a partner, being a parent, just life in general. I love to be at home. It's literally where I find my most peace. I always wanted to be a stay-at-home partner, regardless of whether or not I had kids. I've always wanted kids. There was a small period of time where I was like, maybe I don't, but I do. And kid one. I only want one kid. I always knew that I wanted to be at home because I just didn't know what career path I would take that would be the most fulfilling to me other than being a parent. But that doesn't mean that I place all of my identity in being a parent, because I feel like you shouldn't place all of your identity in the career that you choose either. You should have a truly expansive understanding of who you are and the things that you like, don't like, where your morals and values lie, and all of that shindig, so that you can find peace and joy, not being controlled by the systems and the narratives that are being placed upon you, that are put there to oppress and use you. I was a kid that grew up with a mom whose identity was the fact that she was a mom, like full stop. It was so much so that she would project all of my accomplishments onto her. It wasn't me getting a place in the talent show, it was her kid got a place in the talent show. So with that, a certain level of autonomy was removed from me because I wasn't Madison in these situations, I was my mom's kid. This attachment to me that removed my autonomy became a lot of an issue whenever I would try to communicate my needs or my discomforts or where I needed support, because my internal well-being, what I was going through, reflected in my mother. She needed me to be okay to be okay. It's extremely important to be a solid pillar in your own life and truly understand you and truly understand yourself outside of, despite of, remove everything of, so that you can provide that pillar for your kid to eventually become a pillar for themselves, because you cannot raise a solid human being if you are not a solid human being yourself. How are you supposed to teach a person to be the best versions of themselves if you don't have the ability to be the best version of yourself? All of this to say, I'm highly aware of the things that we do not have control of, the systems that we live under, the things that oppress us, and we have to do our best to navigate that in a way where we provide safe spaces for parents, for kids, for the future, the people, and make decisions despite of these systems. We have to truly have an understanding of ourselves, our morals, our values, how we move in the world, what are our ethical decisions, so that we can truly find peace and love and joy despite the world falling apart around us. Because let's face it, the world is always falling apart around us because things are always being built and things are always being destroyed. It's just a part of being human. And if we as people decide that it's not okay to bring life because look at the state of the world when the world is just being the world, it's a disservice to our free will as people. Anyway, I don't really have any more points to make. I hope this was a cohesive video, and I hope that you enjoyed it and found some value in it. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you have something to say, comment. If you enjoyed the video, like the video, and if you enjoyed me, subscribe. Anyway, have a good rest of your time. Bye, guys.